I'm sorry. Dave Grohl would basically have to be sacrificing babies before I ever gave him any shit because I have a fanboy crush on him. So I can't really trash him because in my twisted fucking narcissistic world, I think I actually have a chance of meeting him and maybe playing drums on one track on his next album. That's the lofty area my ego lives in. You know what I should do? One of these weeks I should actually play drums for you guys, or maybe guitar, and you can hear how fucking awful I am. Then you can trash me and feel better about yourselves. Isn't that fun? Doesn't that make you feel good to watch somebody attempt something and then completely fail? And then you get that warm feeling in your chest where you're like, see, that's what happens when you try. That's what happens when you go after your dreams. I knew I was right by choosing this job that was safe rather than fulfilling. Isn't that what you do? You fucking cunts.
Hey, it's Saylor, and this is episode 450 of the Orange Pill Investor. It took me a second to find the damn track. I had it open up in a different browser. What's up, Richard? And so today I want to talk a little bit about hyper-Bitcoinization when Bitcoin is the unit of account. I've talked about this briefly before, I think, but Mike Munz's tweet reminded me of this. And it might play into a little bit of AI as well, because it's probably no coincidence that Bitcoin is arriving right on the scene to hopefully save us from our AI overlords. And it's going to be a crazy place in 50 years. I'll probably be on my deathbed at that point. So maybe I won't care so much, but I do want to live long enough to see what hyper-Bitcoinization gets this world to. So that was, hell yeah, Bill Burr is the man. And so that was, shoot. That was a mix. Let me look at my recently played. Oh no. I'll link it. I'll link it in the show notes or in the comments or something after. Or unless maybe I get a chance to find it. I think I have it on Signal. I actually sent that one to my son, who's a musician, because I thought he might get a kick out of that part. And the reason why that was kind of related to this topic is, and it was something that Tad Smith said as well on one of his interviews, that with the advent of AI, his recommendation to young people was something along the lines, I probably won't get the quote exactly right, but it was, you might as well do what you love, because if a robot is going to be able to do your job better than you, then why do something that you don't like and the robot is still going to be able to do your job better than you? It would be kind of cool if this ushered in like a renaissance of art, and like just people making music, going to live performances. I don't really dig on going to museums and looking at paintings and shit, but maybe there will be some revitalization of just super deep artwork. I mean, hell, we got artists, we got AI artists like LaDoja, and actually at I guess I'm name dropping now, but I was at a dinner with some of Tad's people, and there was an AI artist there, and she had I think she ended up having some physical limitations, and AI like enabled her to to do things that she wouldn't have normally been able to do. And I thought that was pretty freaking cool. We're going to have people with like implants in their brain. Elon's whipping up some shit. And there's some really scary kind of like cyber brained people in the future. But there's going to be some amazing things that that people are going to be able to do, and like diseases that we're going to be able to overcome. So there's a lot of cool shit on the horizon. But if like everything is free, like are we just in like Star Trek world where nobody has to work? Maybe we'll have universal basic income. I'm a free market libertarian. I guess I would have to say that capitalism is a valuable tool, and so the commies mostly annoy me. However, if Bitcoin mining drives the price of electricity basically to zero because of an infinite demand for lower prices, if anybody really cares to hear my shitty explanation of that, you can let me know in the comments. But Jeff Booth is the source of that, and I think he's probably got it right. But if the price of energy drops to near zero, and we have robots making robots so that the price of basically everything is trending towards zero forever, it almost just seems like some type of UBI is inevitable. And there will probably be some versions of the ultra wealthy still at some point, because there's only so much oceanfront property and everybody's going to want it. But those types of luxuries will, maybe will still be held out only for the very rich. But like, I don't know, basic food and water is probably going to be free or nearly free if we got robots making robots and working in the fields. I was kind of thinking about it as I was watching a guy walk down the side of the road on, dressed for work at the gas station. And I thought, well, his job won't be around in 5 years, 10 years. It'll just be, an Optimus robot standing at the counter or something. But it's also going to free people up to do whatever the hell they want to do instead of these shit jobs that nobody wants to do. But then at the same time, there's going to be this transition when money is still real, but people are losing their jobs, which probably makes owning Bitcoin even that much more important, because if before money becomes meaningless, it's going to mean a hell of a lot more temporarily. So there's going to be this transition of chaos probably. And I hope it's, I hope the fiat system goes out with a whimper instead of a bang. But if you follow Ray Dalio's, I don't know, fiat cycle theory, it usually goes out with a bang. So hopefully Bitcoin got here in time to save us from an even bigger bang than humanity has ever seen. Okay, so to answer that question about the track, that is Grammatic versus Nirvana versus Bill Burr, Lake of Fire Flip. Found that on YouTube Music. All right, so what does investment? Mike asked, what does investment look like when Bitcoin is the unit of account? And it's going to be freaking weird, right? If normally we negotiate our annual raise increase, right? Our merit increase, or what, cost of living increase, whatever the hell you want to call it. But eventually, if we're just transacting in Bitcoin, and let's just say you worked for 1 Bitcoin a year, right now that's 100 grand. Okay, cool. I can live off that, maybe, depending on what my expenses are. But in 5 years, when Bitcoin is $1 million a coin, or $500,000 a coin, that business would go out of business. My employer would go out of business if not only were they having to pay me $500,000 a year now to do the same shit I was doing before, but now I'm trying to negotiate 1.25 Bitcoin salary. No, that's not going to work. And hell, if there's only 21 million Bitcoin, that would mean that only 21 million people in the world could even have a 1 Bitcoin salary, and all the Bitcoin is used up. And we know damn well some of these people are still clinging to the never sell your Bitcoin mantra. But it might take 50 years, it might take more, but I think MSTR would have to kind of, like, when hyper Bitcoinization is reached, they'd have to sell some Bitcoin. I really don't think it's any other way, because the only way that you can transact with anyone is with Bitcoin. If dollars are meaningless, this whole spend your dollars and buy Bitcoin becomes impossible, because anybody with anything worth buying off of another person will only accept Bitcoin for it. So in that sense, when a company has quarterly earnings, you're going to have to spend Bitcoin to pay your employees. You're going to have to spend Bitcoin to buy the lumber, to make the framing for the house, to build the house. Like, and so then it's going to be this tug of war of like, are you gaining or losing Bitcoin? But Bitcoin is becoming so valuable that it doesn't even matter if your overall Bitcoin stack is decreasing, because as long as your Bitcoin stack is decreasing slower than the deflation rate, you're still getting wealthier. So in 50 years, you might have a positive earnings report and you're reporting a net decrease in Bitcoin per share. But as long as your Bitcoin per share decrease is lower than the rate of deflation, that innovation is making things infinitely and exponentially cheaper, then you're still getting wealthier. It's like, let's see, let's do Bitcoin compounding. So this was a site made by Hornet Hodl. I'm sorry, Bitcoin Hornet. I think it's Hornet Hodl on X. Anyway, this is like the model for how many Bitcoin you need to retire on if you're never going to work again and you're never going to have any more income and you're just going to live off your Bitcoin stack. This models it out, like how much Bitcoin do you need? And when you run the model, you'll find that as long as you're spending your Bitcoin slower than it's appreciating, right? Slower than the 30% diminishing CAG or whatever model you choose, you still end up with like hundreds of millions of dollars of purchasing power in the future, even if your like 20 Bitcoin stack dwindles down to like 3 or 4 or 5 Bitcoin. In 50 years, if you've only got like 1 or 2 Bitcoin left, I mean, you're still fabulously, ridiculously bloodline enriching wealthy. And this is going to apply, this whole thing is going to apply to companies too. So like when like no one is willing to trade for anything but Bitcoin, everyone's going to have to spend your Bitcoin. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. So this never sell your Bitcoin thing, I think is only a temporary phenomenon. And this increase in Bitcoin per share and the rate of increase of Bitcoin per share and this month's cover Bitcoin MNAV frickin' shit that we just keep coming up with, that's all only important now, which is one of the reasons why all of these companies that are doing it and running the Saylor playbook have a huge advantage, because this window of opportunity is not going to be open forever. and the companies that do it now before, like while increasing Bitcoin per share is even possible. I think in the future it will be impossible to increase your Bitcoin per share unless you come up with something so amazing. Like if somebody comes out with a gene therapy, some CRISPR shit, and is like, okay, here's the one-stop shop for every single cancer cure. You come up with that, you might have an increase in Bitcoin per share. Your company will probably be flooded with Bitcoin. Everybody that has cancer that wants to be cured is going to crack open their cold storage, because time on this earth is the only thing worth more than Bitcoin. More time with your loved ones, more times with your family. I think any person that wants to live longer would crack open their cold storage for a few more healthy years of life. So incredibly valuable services and products and inventions like that. You'll have some positive increase in Bitcoin per share temporarily, but then once that becomes standard, and now it's just robots pumping out the cure, and it's robots making robots pumping out the cure, and anybody can just walk over to the Star Trek replicator and be like, okay, Earl Grey tea, I need my cancer cure pills, or whatever. When it's that easy peasy, then even the cure for cancer will be the cost of that will be trending to zero. So it's going to be a freaky bizarro world that we're living in. And the reasonable expectation for an investment would be, Bitcoin's CAGR plus some kind of venture return. Which is really weird, because for Bitcoiners, Bitcoin is the hurdle rate. And then for people who are invested in strategy, Bitcoin is the hurdle rate. And since it's a levered Bitcoin play, we expect a higher return even than Bitcoin. And then for me, as a trader, an investor and a trader of strategy, my hurdle rate is strategy itself, which is like a 60% CAGR. So anytime my account performs lower than a 60% CAGR, I'm failing as a trader, because I could have just got 60% just owning strategy straight up. Now that's like on a 5 or 10 year timeline, because you're gonna you might lose 75% on a bear market, and then you might gain 1,000% or something during the bull market, and it all averages out in the end to 60% year over year. But that's kind of insane for TradFi people to even wrap their heads around. They think that we're grifters when we talk about the staggering amounts of money that you can make as a Bitcoiner or a strategy holder, or trying to even get bigger edges by buying some calls, shorting some calls, playing the ups and downs in the market. It's kind of wild that we're trying to beat 60% returns. It's kind of insane to think about. All right, let me close this before I start airing our dirty laundry on the stream. Yeah, but it would be kind of cool, right? If AI and robots take all the jobs that nobody wants to do, and half the jobs that people do want to do, then everybody can just be artists. We can have like 8 billion artists on the planet, just having frickin' music fests on the weekend. It is going to be a little bit of a crisis for meaning and purpose, I think, especially for men, because traditionally a man proves to society that he's worth existing based on the the service that he can provide to his fellow man, which is rewarded by some type of income. and we derive meaning and purpose from that. Women are inherently valuable because they keep the human race going. So they're like they can increase their value in the same way that a man can, but absent, if there's a man that wasn't really producing much for his fellow man, and a woman wasn't either, at least she can further the species and maybe raise a couple of kids that are worth something. Whereas the man doesn't really have that luxury. I don't know. I heard that they were able to manipulate the sperm into a stem cell, and then the stem cell into an egg. So I don't know. Maybe the men are going to be just as valuable as women one day. We can get that figured out. But until that happens, who was it? There was an old feminist, Gloria. Shit, I can't remember her name. But she said that women are men must become, something like that. And that's pretty short and sweet, but I think it gets right to the point that if, as a man, if you don't make something of yourself, you're basically judged as worthless by society. So in a world where the average machine has more meaning and purpose than you as a man, it's going to be a difficult adjustment period. Maybe everything will just be like art and sports, right? I can't imagine we'll be watching Optimus robots play 5-on-5 basketball or professional football. I guess it would reduce the traumatic brain injuries, but I think it's always going to be more fun to watch humans compete against humans in sports. But maybe not. We'll see. So maybe it'll just be art and sports in 100 years. That will be every person's dream in life, will just to be how good can you be at something fun, really, instead of trying to dig in the dirt to survive. What's up, Kakapo? Your community commune living seems like a possibility that by that point. Yeah. And it's funny, like, commies kill the most people, right? Mao and Stalin and all those cats. But when I worked in IT, the hardest working coworker that I ever had was, no bullshit, a legit card carrying communist. She actually lived in a commune back in the, I don't know, 60s or 70s or some damn thing. And then she ended up getting pregnant, and I can't remember if she wanted to like give birth in a real ass hospital instead of on the freaking commune. But at some point, she decided to re-enter society, and somehow, I mean, she was smart and she got into IT, and she would like get to work early. She didn't even like bill the company for all of the hours. Like if she needed, like, she just loved to work on shit. And it was kind of wild, but she told me stories about how she literally had her communist card. Like she was a registered communist. So in general, I think that communism lowers the production of a society. And I think Saifedean is correct. If you listen to he had a really good speech where he was speaking to, I don't know, some live audience, and it was about economics. And it's not, communism fails a little bit because of the incentives, right? If you're not incentivized to do more, to get more, like in general, you're disincentivized to try your hardest. But he claimed, and I think he's right, that the real problem with communism is that they can't solve the economic calculation problem. So, I mean, the example of a pencil has probably been used a million times and it works. So there's no reason to really go looking for new ones. But like no single person can like even create a pencil these days, right? Somebody's an expert at, growing the wood and then shaping the wood, and somebody else gets the graphite out of the ground, and somebody else has the rubber tree, and somebody else knows how to process the rubber, and somebody else knows how to make that little metal piece. Actually, if anybody's under the age of 25, they might even not even use a real fucking pencil. Probably just have the little mechanical pencils. I might not even know what the hell I'm talking about. But there's a little metal piece that connects the wood to the rubber pencil. And then some, those people don't know how to make the yellow paint that goes on the yellow pencil. And then somebody else has to stamp the number 2 on it. So it's going to take like a half dozen or more producers and manufacturers to even make a stupid ass pencil. And if someone is trying to centralize that doesn't know, is not even an expert in any one of those processes, they literally, it's impossible to calculate how much wood, how much wood trees to plant, how much rubber trees, how much metal, how much paint, how much chemical, all of that stuff, how much graphite to mine and refine. No central planner can figure that out. So communism is destined to fail. Central planning will always fail. It's just, there's just no way. I mean, I guess maybe AI could get good enough at it at some point, but humans are incapable of making that calculation. The only way that calculation can be accurately made is the free market. So when people themselves determine how many pencils they need, and they share that desire with Walmart. And if Walmart doesn't have enough pencils on the shelves, they go and order more, and the producers produce more, and the growers grow more, and it all just kind of works itself out. So, but then at the same time, I live like a communist inside my house, right? The kids share the wealth, and they don't have to share in any of the any of the work, right? They don't have to go out and work like a slave. So I guess I'm a free market capitalist in the streets, and I'm a commie at home. What's up, Dana? To increase Bitcoin per share, you just loan your Bitcoin like a bank. And so that's what part of the title is. So if you saw, definitely check out Saif when the last time Saylor was on Saif Amus's channel. They kind of had a little bit back and forth. It was kind of spicy. And I'm on Team Saif with this one, because Saylor was hyping up, why wouldn't you want a yield on your Bitcoin? And some people will, but the problem is that what are the people who are borrowing it going to do with it? They're going to risk it, and you might not get it back. So if you loan out your Bitcoin trying to get 5% yield, that person is maybe going to start a business, and they're going to try to cure cancer. And if they fail, and most people do fail, then you will have risked your Bitcoin for a yield, and some people will pay the loan back, and some people ain't gonna. So your Bitcoin will decrease. And I would go so far as to say too, like, there might be a lot of layer 2 solutions, like we're going to tokenize a bunch of stuff, and maybe most of the Bitcoin really doesn't move. And we kind of joked about trading strats instead of sats, like strategy tokens, like or literally just paying with your strategy shares on your app. And like strategy shares are like paper Bitcoin kind of. But in a sense, I kind of don't like that, because that just seems like the fiat system centralizing everything, and that just allows for a bunch of rehypothecation, like what the banks are doing with fiat now. The good news is that with Bitcoin, that shit can only just go on for so long, and if the credit unwinds, like once the tide goes out, you're gonna see who really still has their Bitcoin, and a bunch of people will get wrecked, and then it'll kind of the free market will kind of work itself out in that sense. But Saifedean's argument is that in the future, people will only be more likely to risk their Bitcoin for equity. And that was what a couple of people that responded to Mike's post mentioned as well. Is people are not going to want your stupid ass 5%. Like, I couldn't care less about 5%. Like, 5% of what? 5% in dollars makes sense because dollars are going to zero. But for the person loaning, why would they want dollars back? Why would I loan my Bitcoin for someone to give me dollars? And if we're talking about Bitcoin being the unit of account and dollars don't even exist, it's going to be pretty difficult to loan out Bitcoin and get more Bitcoin back. That's a pretty tall order. You could even envision it being profitable to loan Bitcoin at zero interest, because at least you don't have the carry cost and the headache of keeping the Bitcoin safe. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but it's just kind of weird. Weird directions that your brain gets pulled into when you're trying to imagine a world that looks nothing like what it looks like today. Yeah, but I agree that what you're saying, Mark, will happen, but some of those people will get wrecked. What's up, Stuart? Almost never get to watch as you're streaming, but greatly appreciate your content and insights. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. What's up, Crash Course? What is Money Show was just touching on this subject today. Oh, really? Mark says, I thought Sully would be watching Powell speak. You know what's funny? I don't even pay attention. I generally don't even know that this stuff is happening until I check my Twitter feed. And then I'm like, oh, I guess there's a FOMC meeting today. Or, oh, okay, I guess the jobs report is out. Or the only thing that I really know, whether it's coming or not, is like Strategy's earnings report. I don't pay attention to most of the rest of it. Let's see. David says, explain to me the difference in outcomes for libertarianism and communism. Explain to me the difference in outcomes. So, I might as well just get straight to the point. I'm as libertarian as you can get, basically an anarchist with no qualifiers. And so you could convince me that minarchism is the way to go because you need just enough centralized authority to make sure that the raiding hordes from the tribe next door can't take you out. So I don't mind kind of having like a strong military would, walk softly and carry a big stick kind of thing. I don't mind a little bit of forward presence, a little bit of flex. Let's see, the difference in outcomes for libertarianism and communism. I think I kind of explained it. I don't know how far back that is. Let's see, that was about 8 minutes ago. Yeah, I would consider myself more of a free market person, which is a little bit different than capitalism. Capitalism to me is a system built on the acquiring capital. And if you can build a political structure on top of that, then the people who have the most capital have the most power. So I'm not a fan of crony capitalism or the kind of the poisoning that the fiat system does to capitalism itself. So I guess I'm more of a free market person. But then the outcomes for communism, if we're going to do central planning, I think it's just kind of what I was saying, that it's destined to fail because the economic calculation problem is unsolvable by humans. So they're always going to produce too much of something and not enough of something else. And people who are being ruled by people that are employing such a system are going to inevitably suffer or will not do as well as a libertarian, as close to a libertarian society as can be possibly done, where effort is rewarded and failure is punished, right? The too big to fail was a problem. No one should be too big to fail. If you fail, you should just go out of business, and then somebody who does your job better should replace you. You could call it survival of the fittest, I suppose. But yeah, libertarian is like it's more of like society succeeds the most when there's less barriers put in their way. I don't think I did the greatest job of answering that question, but let me know if I completely missed the mark. Alaric said, and that's actually the reason why all these company conspiracies don't make sense. Requires central planning. Let's see. When you put the pencil analogy out there, it definitely helps to explain how much we need each other. Yeah, for sure. AI says, left my ass off in a free market capitalist in the streets and a commie at home, I guess. Yep. What's up, Brendan? Communists complete central planning and destroys economic incentives and leads to a handful of individuals holding all wealth and power. Mao, Stalin killed millions with no repercussions. No lies detected. Anyways, how are we feeling about earnings tomorrow? Priced in bewilderment, as Jeff says. Man, I just don't think that the market is going to be caught by surprise. I'm definitely going to take all my covered calls off just in case. Like, there's 252 trading days a year, I believe. So if I don't capture theta on 4 earnings calls a year, like 4 out of 250, that's fine, right? That's like a couple $100. So I think the risk of having covered calls on and the market could rally and just freak out, that risk is too great to try to capture a couple of bucks. So I will be taking all of my covered calls off tomorrow morning. I got to get on a plane to Portland. I'm going to go to Bitcoin is for Everyone on Friday. So hopefully I will see y'all there if you're in the area. But yeah, I think these earnings calls, like if the markets are so irrational, like we could just have this amazing EPS and the market just doesn't give a shit. I mean, we missed to the downside in Q1 by like, I don't know, some huge EPS miss because of Bitcoin's price went down. But the market didn't care. Like strategy didn't crash because there was a big EPS miss. So I don't really see why the market would rally on a beat, because when they're predicting their EPS, they're just kind of reporting it in a standard way that only accounts for the company's profits and losses from the BI software portion. They don't really give a shit about the balance sheet. So I don't think that the algorithms really care about the EPS. They certainly didn't care when they missed last quarter. So logically, you could assume that they're not going to care about beating earnings, EPS. But the market is so irrational. That's why I just don't make any assumptions whatsoever. I don't have the slightest idea if the market, if bewilderment is priced in, right? If we bottomed out at 250, which I think is just literally nothing more than, we had a blow off top in November. You're supposed to have a correction, right? When you 4x from whatever, 125 to 500 a share, it's pretty routine for any stock, let alone strategy, to correct 50% from there. So we dropped from 500 a share to 250 a share, whatever, ballpark. We bottomed out, like a triple bottom at 2 something. Okay, we're recovering from that. The market, if Bitcoin goes up to 150, 200 or whatever by the end of the year, we know strategy is going with it. It's just going to be, to what extent. Dan Hillary had a really good post too about that $2 billion buy with Stretch, that oversized mamma jamma Bitcoin buy. I think he said it's going to put them approximately up to 20% leverage ratio, which is a welcome return to leverage. I had said that maybe they were keeping the leverage low to appease the S&P 500 committee, but clearly that is not the case. And maybe they were just keeping their leverage low because, it's not like they came up with the idea for Stretch last week, right? I mean, they've had to have been planning this for months. So you can't be like over leveraged and then roll out a preferred product and now you're like way over leveraged, and then they'd have to piss people off by hammering the common ATM to reduce the leverage. Like if they were at like 40% leverage, they'd have to hammer the common ATM to lower that leverage back down to a reasonable ratio. So I mean, they know what they're going to roll out next month and the month after and the month after. We don't find out about it until like, an earnings call or an announcement or whatever. So when I'm up on the True North episode last Wednesday and I'm bitching about the low vol and the low leverage ratio, I'm like, pump those numbers up. But really, strategy is probably rolling their eyes. Not that they fucking listen to me on the show, but they're probably rolling their eyes like this guy doesn't have a fucking clue, because they know they're rolling out Stretch in 2 weeks, right? I don't know they're rolling out Stretch in 2 weeks. We should have known that it was coming because that, I think it was slide number 19 on the Stretch presentation. There's a big gap in between STRC and STRD. So they'll probably come out with at least 2 more preferreds to have a fully developed yield curve. I'm just guessing that, they have Strife, and then they've got the junk bond version, which is STRD. They've got Strike, which has got the call option. That confuses the fucking hell out of everybody. And now they've got Stretch, which is a variable. Now, I had kind of predicted that they would come out with a variable. I got the idea from Grok, so it's not like I can take credit for it. But I did generate the prompts for Grok, to consider. So just more AI taking over the world and replacing human thought. But anyway, Grok basically thought, okay, maybe something that was a variable interest rate connected to the Fed rate. And that's basically what they came out with. But theirs is had some little extra with it, that it's going to be a stable coin, right? They want it pegged to 100. So that was a wild card. But they could come out with another one that's variable, that's not pegged to a dollar amount. So maybe that's on the horizon, and that will be on the yield curve somewhere between STRC and STRD. The other interesting one that I thought that a couple of people in the chats had mentioned was like STRH, something for like housing loans, where I don't know, I'll butcher it if I try to repeat it, but it was something to where, like you could use it as the collateral for the housing loan. And I don't know, there's interest or something that, anyway, it does make sense because tapping into the real estate market just seems kind of like a way to tap that kind of income. But that's the most interesting idea that I've heard anybody mention, was something related to home loans and using the stock as like collateral for a home loan or something. That would be pretty cool if that ever comes out. But maybe something like Strike with a call option and a variable interest rate. They can basically take one of their basic, one of their basic bitch preferreds like Strife, and then just tweak it. If it's a fixed interest rate, make it variable. If it's variable, make it fixed. Or if it's variable but a fixed share price like STRC, make it variable with no fixed share price, right? They can tweak it to custom tailor it to existing products, but make it better than anything that exists. And it was kind of the title of one of my shows the other day, is that strategy is going to continue coming up with more preferreds until they have one best-in-class preferred stock for every category killer. They're going to have one category killer per class, and basically just own the market and watch the other preferred stocks just scramble to play catch up. I think I got off on a hell of a tangent on that one. Oh, that was about earnings. So yeah, I have no predictions whatsoever. I'm not going to make any bets that it will go up or that it will go down. I'm just going to stay flat. I'm just going to take all of my covered calls off and just let whatever happens, because sometimes you can get a good earnings report, but if it's not as good as the market was expecting, like, the price can go down. The market is just completely irrational. So short-term stuff, I don't really even try to predict. Might need to change my name to AIEC, not AI, but I guess capital I and lowercase l. Oh shit! Look exactly the skin of this font. So okay, so it's Al. Yeah, I'm thinking it was AI. Okay, so what's up, Al? Brent says, I agree. I really just don't see how everyone gets caught with their pants down, because it's everyone on the street. The only way to rally is if we get a huge headline and some retail jump. Yeah. And if retail are discovering strategy for the first time because of this EPS, and maybe they get, I don't know, they get some news on the Market Watch channels and all of that stuff. But I don't know. Is there enough retail money to even pump it? Isn't it the institutions that really make this shit happen? So, anyway, the part about Dan's post was, I'm excited that their leverage ratio is higher, because when we do get that rally, when we do get that next leg up for Bitcoin, strategy with a 20% leverage ratio should rally that much higher than it would with only a 10% ratio, because it's, if you're a levered play, the more leverage you are, the higher the multiple should be that your stock should rally. And I think strategy's implied vol really hasn't picked up yet. So I think that extra leverage justifies maybe a higher implied vol, but that has not materialized. So it does make me a little bit nervous. Like, when the leverage ratio was 10%, even with this low implied vol, I never really felt all that nervous about selling covered calls. You know what I mean? A lot of people were like, oh, it's gonna rally. And I'm like, yeah. But with the low leverage ratio, it's like, but why would it? Like, why would the market give it credit for having more leverage than it has. It's not really. So that was why I didn't really feel too badly about selling the 450 strikes like a month ago. And, you always get a little bit nervous, like when I had the 450 strikes, and even those were underwater, right? Those were in the money because strategy was up to 455. It's kind of like I even had some 425 covered calls that were underwater. And that, while that was annoying at the time, it wasn't like I had this fear like, oh my God, strategy is going to 650. Like with a low leverage ratio, I just wasn't really too nervous about it. But now that strategy is increasing, is ratcheting up that leverage, I am starting to worry about it a little bit more. So while I have on like 15 covered calls and the poor man's covered call in this account, I'm going to close these all out tomorrow morning before I get on a plane. And then on Friday, depending on what strategy's price does, I probably won't put all of these back on. I'll probably kind of like dip a toe in the water, maybe put like 5 back on, regardless of whether strategy goes up or down or sideways. Just because I think the next time that Bitcoin moves, if strategy continues to ratchet up this leverage, coming out with more, if they come out with 2 more preferreds and oversize that shit to, 2-3 billion a pop, that puts strategy's leverage ratio in a really nice sweet spot. And I think that gives them the opportunity to hit the common ATM without it being like destructive to the leverage ratio. Right now, or a week ago, when if they're hitting the common and the leverage ratio is already like 10%, down to 10%, that's just diluting even farther and kind of like tamping down the vol. But maybe that's also a good thing, because if the stock is too volatile, that could be another reason why the committee would reject them into the S&P 500. So I'm going to try to be a little bit quieter about complaining about the vol, complaining about the implied vol, complaining about the leverage ratio, because it's way more important to get into the S&P 500 than to pump up the implied vol for my options trading. You know what I mean? So hopefully strategy is keeping the big picture in mind. They know what they're doing behind the scenes, and hopefully Saylor's back there with AI making some good decisions. So with that being said, my dog is whining at me because he can tell time and he knows it's time to have dinner. But if I wasn't just going to take these off tomorrow, these would be ready to roll. So I'm going to have to just go ahead and close these down in the morning. I could do it now and save myself the trouble, but I'm planning to have a quick episode in the morning shortly after the market opens, because I got to get to the airport. So anyway, nothing to do here. I've been trying to chip away at my margin usage, but it just keeps actually going higher, which is annoying. Because I haven't been aggressively selling more covered calls, I haven't been able to chip away at that margin usage. But the bills don't stop coming in, so I've been spending, but not taking profits. Oh boy. All right, so so my 350s. What the hell are these? Are these my poor man's covered calls? I don't even remember what the hell I was doing with this account. I bought these just the other day. Okay, yeah, so these are the oh yeah, I think I just sold 2 covered calls against shares, and then I'll wait until after the market reacts. I am a little bit annoyed with myself that I bought the 350s. I think it would have been a lot safer to buy the 300s. If we gap down to 320, these 350s are going to be underwater, and it's going to make it hard for me to sell covered calls against these. So this strike choice, I think, was regrettable, but hopefully I won't get wrecked. Tesla, excuse me, of course, is just doing its thing, so nothing really to do there. Again, I'll take these off tomorrow if I can afford it. I don't remember if this is a margin account, so I'm not sure if I'll even have the cash to do it. We'll see. This was the covered call challenge account. Same deal. I'll take these off tomorrow. Take these off tomorrow. All right, the 5K account. I'm starting to regret this Strive position I took. Not because I don't believe in Strive. Like, I'm actually glad that I have a long position in Strive because with Jeff on board, you know, you got to imagine that there's good things coming. But annoyingly, their options, their ticks are in increments of 5 cents. So you get screwed on the bid-ask spread. And with the cheapness of the price of the underlying, it's hard to generate meaningful premium in these types of stocks anyway. Anything under $10 gets dicey. Anything under 5 is real dicey. And they only have monthly options, which is annoying. So I kind of violated one of my rules of options trading, in that liquidity is the number 2 most important thing. The number 1 most important thing is position size, right? You should only have a position size that you can sleep well at night. Number 2 thing for options is liquidity, right? You want a nice tight bid-ask spread. You want as much volume and open interest as possible. And when the bid-ask spread is in increments of nickels, it just makes it that much harder to get in and out of trades. So this 7.5 call that I sold for $20, 20 cents times 100, is now worth, you know, something less than a nickel, right? If you wanted to sell, people are trying to buy them for 0. Like, there's nobody that wants to buy for a nickel. There are only people that want to sell. So for me to try to buy this back, it's you know, kind of sucks. So anyway, I'm going to try to roll this because there's no value left in it. So I got to roll it out to 51 days to expiration. I could try to roll it to 7.5 again, but I'd rather just roll it to 5 and collect some extra premium. With cheap stocks like this, you know, like rolling it out for 15 cents is just kind of like, why bother? So I'm going to go ahead and try to roll it out to the $5 strike. And on a different account, I wasn't able to get this to fill at this price, but that goes to, once I put 25 in, that's medium fill likelihood. So I'm going to give this a shot, but I'm thinking it probably won't fill. I'm probably going to have to go to 24. But that actually kind of surprised me. So using the single click button roll option, because I'm buying to close and I'm selling to open in one shot, it's letting me sell this in ticks outside of nickel. Like if I bought it back, I'd probably have to buy it back for a nickel, and then when I sell this, I'd have to sell it for 30. So it's actually letting me put in pennies here to do the one-step roll, which I thought was weird. All right, so now I got to go down to 23. This should fill at 23. Come on now. I got it to fill at 24 earlier. There we go. Okay. So now I have severely limited my upside because I had to roll down from the 7.5 strike to the $5 strike. What did I roll out to? Didn't I roll out to September? Yeah, had to roll out to September. What else do I have? So I've got the $5 calls. There's still a little bit of premium here, though, 10 cents. So it is worth way less than what I sold it for. So maybe it does make sense to roll this out as well. I'll just roll it to 30 again. And let's try to, there's no way it's going to fill at 20. Let's do 15 says medium. Let's try 16. You know, let's be a little, let's try 17. It's not going to work, but I don't want to sell myself short. Yes, I'm starting to get annoyed with this drive position. How many of these do I have? I may just take a couple off. I'd rather take these off and lose some money than be annoyed. So I just rolled this one out to September. But what is that against? Is that against this position? Do I have two of these? Okay, yeah, I got 2 sells and 2 buys. That's fine. All right, did it work? Did it fill while I wasn't looking? No. Okay, here, let's replace it. What did I try last time? 17 and it didn't work. I think I got to go to 16. Yeah, this is just annoying. Like I'm scraping and scratching just to try to get a couple of bucks, which, you know, the stock's only $3 a share. You can't really expect. So I'm rolling this. At this point, I'm just rolling to try to get an extra nickel. So I'm going to do nothing here. This isn't cheap enough. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to dump this one. I was able to successfully roll the other one. I'm just going to get rid of one of these positions. It's annoying me, and I don't like being annoyed. It was kind of fun to play with it because the selling the puts was pretty mispriced. But yeah, I'm just going to close this. I probably won't even close at 10. It's going to make me pay 15. Right, because 0.13. Yeah, update to 15. So this is actually kind of cool. Every once in a while, you'll notice that even though I said I would pay 15, they only charged me 13. So that's kind of cool. All right, so let me get rid of one of these synthetic positions. Let me just close one. If I would take a loss on this, it's fine. And I'm probably going to have to pay a little bit more. Let's pay 2.85. Nope. Let's pay 2.95. Damn, they can make me pay $3. Oof, more. Let's get this over with. It's got to fill eventually, right? Holy smokes. Yeah, the liquidity is just not there. This is painful. Let's do 3.25. There we go, finally. All right, so I've just got one of these left, I believe. And I got a couple of puts that I sold for 92. Do I really want to even deal with this anymore? Yeah, I'll just let that cook until the last minute. I'll deal with this tomorrow, since I won't be able to roll it on Friday, probably. Other than that, nothing else to report. So actually, I probably have a little bit of buying power now. Yeah, just $400. Okay. I think that's it. I'll deal with all of the covered call stuff first thing in the morning after the open. What's up, Snowy? Strategy at 400 and covered calls are safe. Life is good. See you in Portland. Yeah, man. Can't wait. I guess I'm bad luck. Strategy just fell $9 since I joined. Yeah, maybe I talked too long. What's up, Dana? I would say there's no stupid questions, but I've heard a couple. But go for it. Let's see. What else was... Yeah, so hyper-Bitcoinization. Investment is going to be super weird. I think Saylor's... He'll be right temporarily, but eventually no one's going to give a shit about yield. It's going to be all about equity. So I'm team Saif on that one. And then as Bitcoin drives the cost of electricity to damn near zero, and robots are making robots, the meaning of life is going to be pretty freaky. It makes me wonder, at that point, like if money is almost meaningless, why would we even need Bitcoin? I think Adrian said something really kind of out there, and he might be right. He thought that energy itself will become the currency of the future. Like you'll kind of like spend you'll spend energy to trade with people. So I thought that was kind of cool. All right, if you're frantically typing, Dana, you're going to have to hit enter soon. We're all caught up on the chats. All the trading's done. So get it out there if you're going to get it. Yeah, with my son being a musician, I hope that it could just be wishful thinking, but I do hope that there's kind of like a renaissance in music and art, and that we can just, I don't know, we can all just be retired whenever we want. We'll explore the universe. I guess my wife was showing me something about how the military just admitted that they really saw some kind of, was it a UAF or UAP? I can't remember what the acronym stands for. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. or something. So maybe we'll go visit alien planets or something soon. I'm sure the aliens already have Bitcoin, some version of it. You probably can't get off planet without Bitcoin. I've been wondering if Bitcoin itself is one of the is the solution of the Fermi paradox of why if there is intelligent life out there, how come they're not here with us? And you probably can't get off planet if you're still using fiat. So alien civilizations that haven't come up with their own version of Bitcoin probably just go extinct because they just nuke each other before they can get off planet. But the AI thing. So the only other thing that I really am kind of bullish on besides strategy is Tesla. And in Jeff's recent interview, he thought that strategy would be at the top of the S&P 500 and like no one in the rearview mirror, right? Second place would just be not even close. And that's probably one of the only things that I disagree with Jeff about, is that I think Tesla will, and strategy will be 1 and 2. And I don't know which one will be 1 and which one will be 2. But for the next couple of decades, the amount of money printing where robots building robots, like 8 billion people with a robot or two each, and Tesla's going to have some slice of that pie with a subscription service. Like, I'll damn sure pay for the subscription service for the, whatever it costs for my Optimus robot to frickin' mow the lawn for me. I'll pay it. I'll have a Tesla to drive me around, and I'll have an Optimus to cook and clean. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to. But the only thing that gave me pause a little bit with Elon, like, I like to think that he's a force for good, but when he was asking for government regulation on AI, I was like, okay, that gave me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, because like, that's how you get Skynet. Government fucks everything up. And if we're worried about AI taking over the world, like, putting government in charge of it and regulating it seems like the shortest route to ensuring Skynet frickin' launches World War III, is putting government in charge of AI regulation. So that made me a little bit nervous that that he was willing to ask the government to regulate AI so that he could kind of catch up to the competitors that were ahead. So that gave me a little bit of a hesitation that, of course everybody's looking out for themselves, but it would be nice if somebody was developing AI in an altruistic fashion. But all right, sounds like we lost you, Dana. You can save your stupid question for next episode. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Be good, y'all.